up here. Candace is still having issues logging on.
All right, Pierre will work on that. In the meantime, hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for the December 14th meeting of the Atlanta Board of Education. This meeting was scheduled to finish the work that we started last week on December 7th. We continue in a virtual format, of course, due to the continuing trends in our community of COVID-19. As we have noted before, while we are not meeting in person at the Alonzo A. Krim Center for Learning and Leadership, this will be a formal meeting, an official meeting of the Atlanta Board of Education, because we expect a quorum of members to be present on this virtual meeting. We, however, will not be joined by Superintendent Lisa Herring today, as her father, the Reverend Wallace B. Herring, my apologies, passed away earlier this month. You may recall that the Reverend Herring provided an invocation for his daughter's induction as superintendent this summer. It was a moving, powerful invocation, and so many of us had the opportunity to meet him. He was a dynamic man, will be sorely missed, not only by the Atlanta Public Schools family, but the people of Macon, Georgia, where Dr. Herring and the Reverend Herring are from, but also the state of Georgia. We know he will be missed, and our prayers are with Dr. Herring and her family during these difficult times. At this moment, I'd like to ask for a brief moment of silence for the Reverend Herring and the entire Reverend Herring family. Thank you. Serving in Superintendent Herring's place is our Chief Schools Officer, Anita Williams. Welcome, Anita, and thank you for filling in for Dr. Herring today. Today's meeting will be the legislative portion of the meeting only. As mentioned before, we did a lot of the work last week. Dr. Herring and her administration provided work session presentations, and you are encouraged to watch those presentations on our Facebook page if you haven't already, and you can also view the presentation there as well. We will now call the roll for this meeting. Mr. Gaither.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Leslie Grant.
Present.
Representing Educational District 2, Mr. Rettle Baldwin.
Present.
Representing Educational District 3, Ms. Michelle Olympiades.
Present.
Representing Educational District 4, Ms. Nancy Meister. She's present. Can't hear you, but we see you. Representing Educational District 5, Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District 6 and Board Vice Chair, Ms. Isha Collins.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7, Ms. Candace Wood Jackson.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9 and Board Chair, Mr. Jason Estevez.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Can I have a motion to approve the December 14th board meeting agenda?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Erica Mitchell. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll now enter into, I'll now give some brief remarks prior to throwing it over to Anita Williams for the administration's remarks. So, and some of these are a little bit delayed because they were supposed to be made last week, but we'll work through it. APS joined districts across the country last week in celebrating National Inclusive Schools Week. We highlighted the progress schools have made in providing a supportive and quality education to an increasingly diverse student population. This annual week-long celebration provides opportunities for educators, students, and parents to further explore what more schools can do in response to meeting the unique needs of all learners. I also want to highlight that our district on December 1st recognizes World AIDS Day each year. World AIDS Day was created by the World Health Organization to raise awareness of the AIDS pandemic caused by the spread of HIV. It began on December 1st, 1988, and has since been recognized around the world every year on December 1st. This year, the theme was Ending the HIV/AIDS Epidemic, Resilience and Impact. In Spanish, this theme reads, Erradicar la epidemia del VIH-SIDA, Resiliencia e Impacto. I didn't know that was in there. I should have read these remarks beforehand. Look at that, throwing me off with Spanish. Our goal in APS is to continue to increase awareness, fight against prejudice, commemorate the lives lost to the disease, and celebrate victories and increase access to services and treatment. Traditionally, we would display a section of the AIDS memorial quilt at CLL, but that was not possible because of COVID-19. That quilt was available for the first time as a part of a virtual exhibit at www.aidsmemorial.org/virtual exhibition. That website again is www.aidsmemorial.org/virtual-exhibition. In addition, on December 1st, APS could tune into a national conversation spotlighting the interconnectedness of the AIDS and COVID pandemics. That presentation remains online on YouTube and can be found through a search for World AIDS Day 2020 and COVID-19. As a district, we continue to recognize the day, even though many have viewed AIDS as a disease in retreat. But in our community, particularly here in Atlanta and Fulton County, that threat of infection remains very real. We cannot be complacent. Currently, the numbers in Fulton County in new cases, especially in the age group of 13 to 24, has been reported to be in epidemic proportions. Some reports even say that the number of cases in our school district zip codes mirror third world countries. So on behalf of the board, we ask APS students, families, staff, educators, and stakeholders across the city to know their status, get tested, and protect yourselves, protect your family, and protect your friends. Knowledge is everyone's responsibility. Finally, I want to remind our community that we remain in election season. With the upcoming runoffs on January 5th, these elections are more important than ever before. This is a good time to share an update on the district's Good Trouble Voter campaign in partnership with When We All Vote. The campaign aimed to educate and inspire APS students and families about the importance of voting and honors the late Congressman and civil rights leader, John Lewis, who once said, "Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble." As part of this effort, the district, under the guidance of Social Studies Coordinator Janine Lewis, made it a priority that every APS student who is eligible to vote get registered in time for the election. Our campaign has registered nearly 600 new voters, and we cannot be more proud of this program and the engagement of our students and staff. I want to emphasize that we have a January 5th runoff election for two U.S. Senate seats representing the state of Georgia in Congress. These elections have national political consequences, and there is also another runoff as well for Public Service Commission, which has an impact on your local utility bills, particularly as it relates to power. So there will be 3 elections on the ballot, and we want to make sure that everyone gets out there and votes. Please note that in-person voting for the runoffs started today. Absentee ballots may be requested now and should be requested now. If you haven't requested absentee ballots yet, please do so this week. And if you don't do that by this week, go ahead and vote in person. You can vote absentee, of course, in person early, or you can vote, of course, in person on election day. Regardless, please make sure that you have a plan. I am excited to announce that our administration has decided to make Tuesday, January 5th, an early release day so that students and teachers at our traditional schools can make sure that they have the time that they need to go vote. Thank you to Dr. Herring and her team for seeing the need to make election day voting easier for our school community. And again, I want to make sure that we all have a plan to get out and vote, whether that's absentee, in person early, or in person on election day. Make your plan. You can go to iwillvote.com for more details, and that website will direct you to early voting sites or a way that you can request an absentee ballot. With that, that concludes my official remarks. I'll turn it over to the administration. Anita Williams.
Thank you, Chair Estevez. I am honored to be with you on behalf of Superintendent Herring. And I'm especially eager to announce the winners of the Superintendent's 2020 Winter Card Contest. Before I reveal the finalists and the winner of the contest, we want to express our appreciation and admiration for all of the talented across the Atlanta Public Schools. Not only are they inventive, resourceful, and creative young scholars, they are resilient and adaptive, willing to work and create even amid limitations of the virtual space. The contest was open to all elementary, middle, and high school students. We asked contenders to submit a design that reflected winter in the school district, Atlanta, the holidays, or any other creative idea of their choosing. All ideas were welcome, and our students' responses were overwhelming. These designs will become a part of my official winter greeting cards. We received more than 300 submissions from every cluster in APS. So it took a while for Dr. Herring and the team to come up with the finalists. Before I recognize them, I want to thank all of the students who participated in this year's contest. I also want to thank Dr. Sarah Womack, our Fine and Performing Arts Coordinator, Bill Goodman, our Director of Multimedia Design, and Charlotte Naper, our Graphic Designer, for spearheading this annual contest with us and for their guidance throughout the selection process. And of course, I must acknowledge and thank the hundreds of art teachers in APS who are cultivating and inspiring our young talent each and every day. And now, without further delay, let me present to you the finalists of the Superintendent's 2020 Winter Card Contest. And now, for the complete list of winners. High school, Allison Carter, North Atlanta High School. Annie Kim, North Atlanta High School. And Jessica Frazier, Coretta Scott King Young Women's Leadership Academy. Middle school, Julia Promoff, Sutton Middle. Olivia Masser, also from Sutton Middle School. And Azaria Wimberly, Brown Middle School. The elementary school winners are Casey Burton, Jackson Elementary, Randall Reams, Peyton Forest Elementary, and My Trees Willis, Burgess Peterson Academy. We are producing a more comprehensive video that will be released before the winter break. Congratulations to all of our Winter Card Contest winners. Mr. Chair, that concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thank you so much, Anita. And I want to make sure that we give those students their shine. So I want to make sure that that the board office gets to present the presentation. So Pierre, if you can. That was great. Congratulations to those winners. Appreciate y'all for putting that video together and making sure that we present them. And with that, let's move on to the consent agenda. So Anita, could you present the consent agenda for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair Estevez. Before I submit the consent agenda, I want to direct your attention to 3 items. First, with the item 3.02, you will be approving the district's legislative priorities for the 2021 session of the Georgia Assembly. Item 3.04 is a revision of the Board of Education meeting schedule for 2021 that moves the January meeting from Monday the 4th to Monday the 11th. For the third item, 5.02, you are authorizing the district to enter into contracts that will provide district-wide sign language services on an as-needed basis. We have identified Georgia Interpreting Services Network and the Purple Communications Incorporated as qualified providers of sign language services. This authorization shall be 1 year with 4 one-year renewal options to be exercised at Dr. Herron's discretion. The estimated amount of these contracts is $950,000. Mr. Chair and members of the board, I am pleased to submit consent agenda items 3.01 through 6.01 to the board for approval.
All right, thank you so much. Because of where we are with these circumstances, what we're going to do is have a voice vote instead of doing it through the system. And then Sandra Murray will record those, and the results can be found online as they always can on board docs. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Erica Mitchell, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Any questions, discussion? All right. Going once, going twice. And all in favor, say aye. Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Raise your hand if you oppose. None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. I like how Erica raised her hand virtually through Zoom. Impressive. All right. Before, actually, let's move on. I will now, is there a motion to approve? Well, let me do this. We have agenda items 7.01 and 7.02, which are the renaming of Grady High School and Brown Middle School. I wanted to send a shout out to Leslie Grant and Aretta Balden, board members Leslie Grant and Aretta Balden, for their leadership in these two agenda items. As a reminder to everyone, back in March, I asked for certain board members to lead these committees to examine schools that were named after certain individuals to ensure that we have school buildings that reflect the values of Atlanta Public Schools today, and to make sure that our school, the names of school buildings are welcoming to our students, our faculty, and our community. And these board members went out and did that. So I'm greatly appreciative of your work, each one of you. I know it was a lot of work, but I also want to make clear that it's necessary work. People say, what's in a name? Well, there's a lot in a name. We can't do the work around equity and not address the name of buildings. And in that statement is the fact that this is not the only thing we're doing related to equity. There's a lot of other work that is involved, and this is just a small piece of that, but it's an important piece, and it's an important step forward as a school system. So I want to thank the both of you for that. So with that, is there a motion to approve the recommendation that Henry W. Grady High School be renamed to Midtown High School?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Leslie Grant, seconded by Erica Mitchell. Is there a discussion? Leslie, would you like to say anything?
Not really. No,
There you go. All right, next.
no, I do want to give a second time round of thanks to all the people who sat on this committee with us. It was a lot of work, but it was important work, and we did listen and consider thousands of pieces of input for this, and did consider lots of people's thoughts about how we did the process. And I think we're very responsive and considerate of the community. And the committee came back to make sure that this was done correctly. So I just want to say thank you again to everyone. And we look forward to that rolling out in the school and the spirit of the process being activated in the school from here. Thank you.
Great. Michelle?
I just want to extend my thanks to Leslie and her committee for, taking a moment to really listen to the community within what's currently the Grady cluster and will become the Midtown cluster, and really appreciate the work that was given to this process, because it was a difficult decision, and I think we've landed in the right space. So I really appreciate the work and the generosity of the board of putting this committee together and really lending an extra ear to what needed to happen with respect to the renaming. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Raise your hand and say nay. Okay. The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to 7.02, renaming committee recommendation for Brown Middle School, which is to change the name from Joseph E. Brown Middle School to Herman J. Russell West End Academy. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved by Aretta Balden, seconded by Erica Mitchell. Aretta, would you like to say anything?
Of course I would. So I want to thank the amazing committee and stakeholders that participated in this process. We did meet, we hosted 8 meetings, ended up getting about 51 names, settled on 3, and then are coming to the board with the one that board chair Estevez recommended, which is Herman J. Russell West End Academy. And this recommendation is a reflection of stakeholder input received and was voted on unanimously by the committee. West End is a vibrant community known for its diversity, the diversity of its residents who represent many different economic, cultural, ethnic, and religious backgrounds. And the spirit of the neighborhood is reflected in a strong sense of community, which was felt in enthusiastic resident involvement. And Herman J. Russell was a nationally recognized entrepreneur and philanthropist, as well as a highly influential leader. I won't go into the long speech that I had about him, but he is homegrown, born in Atlanta, and certainly affected and influenced in Atlanta. So let us be inspired by the fact that Herman J. Russell expected the best for himself and demanded the best for ourselves and for our students. And is with that I bring forth the recommendation.
Great. I appreciate that. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about it being about the name of the school. I was just curious in regards to the combination of just curious how the committee got to the combination of Herman J. Russell and West End Academy, because I know we had a school called West End Academy, and so I wasn't sure there was any dialogue around the possible confusion of our, former school. We're just curious about it. But I love the name. I love honoring Herman J. Russell.
So the way that we came to it is the committee was split between a name for a person as well as a name for the place. And there was a lot of passion for both. And I just on a whim threw out the suggestion, hey, what if we combine them? How do y'all feel about that? And the committee mulled over it and decided that they liked the combination of the two. So it really was a compromise offer to honor the request of the community, primarily the residents that live within West End, as well as acknowledge the voices of the students of the school, the students and the faculty. So it was a combo compromise.
Oh, thank you.
And the academy was agreed upon because apparently within the school already, the students walk around and they call themselves an academy. They liked the prestige that was associated with academy. And that was really strongly recommended by the students. They actually wanted Chadwick Boseman. And unfortunately we had to disqualify that suggestion, but they really wanted academy. So it was a combination of all stakeholder input.
All right. Well, great. I want to highlight something else that happened during that meeting, Areta, was that a family member of Joseph Brown spoke. You want to briefly touch on that?
Yes, we were, I believe Robert Davis, I believe his name is correctly. He did speak, and he spoke in favor of Herman J. Russell. He spoke in favor of renaming the school, and that it was time for something like that to happen, and that he did support that. And he also spoke to the fact that I believe his father and Herman J. Russell might have played on the state football team together. So it was nice to hear the support of the family, and kind of like a bridging from the past into the present. And if anyone wants to read that letter, I will gladly share that. It was a very heartfelt.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. With that, we're not opening the vote. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Raise your hand and say nay. Except for Candace. No nays. The motion passes unanimously. Next up is 7.03, which is a monthly budget adjustment. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Ishay Collins. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. I will now open it up for 7.04, which is final adoption of the FY 2022 budget timeline and parameters. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Erica Mitchell. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will now move into report out and new business. Prior to doing that, I did want to clarify something from our last discussion on Monday. There is a memo that went out to the community from the superintendent on Friday that sought to clarify some questions. We had a conversation, and I think it was helpful. It sought to clarify some questions and discussion that we had on Monday, and I want to make sure that we clarify this to a T. And that was around the 60% cap. The memo mentioned or said that the 60% cap is on enrollment. There was discussion last Monday around enrollment / capacity, and those words were used interchangeably by the superintendent, by board members, and there was confusion around that in the community. The memo said enrollment, and I wanted to confirm that it is 60% enrollment. My understanding is that it is based on the enrollment of the school building at the anticipated enrollment at the beginning of the school year prior to what would have been leveling. So Anita Williams, do you want to talk about that briefly, just so we can have some closure on that, board members and community at large?
Yes, thank you, Chair Estevez. I'm happy to clarify that. We have used those words interchangeably. So let me clarify that the 60% guideline refers to school enrollment. So it's based on the enrollment of a school, the projected enrollment that a school had when we opened. So again, it is based on school enrollment. And most of our schools will not be affected by this 60% guideline, because back in October when we conducted the survey, most of our schools were below the 60% enrollment mark. So this will look different for each school because the 60% cap is based on the number of students that elect to return for in-person learning. So just to clarify, it is the 60% guideline is based on enrollment only,
Okay.
school enrollment.
And it was based on the enrollment that was projected.
Yes.
Do you know the date of the projected date of the enrollment, the projected enrollment as of what date? Was it the enrollment, projected enrollment at the beginning of the school year?
Yes, now that's my understanding. If there's someone else on this call who can verify that, but my understanding when I came on board that it was the projected enrollment for the beginning of the school year, which was August. So the August projected enrollment.
I don't see Larry on.
No, Larry's
Gerard,
out today.
yeah, Gerard, do you want to?
Yes, I can speak to that. Good evening, board members. I can speak to, we were told that the projections happen around March is when they start doing the projections for school enrollment. And so those are the numbers that we have. We never went through the leveling process. So if a school has 500 students, that's what we allocated teachers according to the enrollment for. If the projected enrollment was 500, and we allocated teachers based on that number. We never went through the leveling process. So if only 400 students showed up, we are still going by the projected enrollment of 500. So it'll be 60% of 500.
Okay. And that has been communicated to principals consistently, so principals understand. I think part of the confusion is that principals have access to the capacity dashboard. That capacity dashboard was built on projected enrollment, is my understanding as well. So the answer to the question, 60% cap based on projected enrollment at the beginning of the school year, not current enrollment. And that will look differently in every school building.
That is correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I see Cynthia has a question, Candace and Michelle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just need to get you to help me with an example here, and let's.
Okay. Let's go through the hypothetical.
I'm sorry. We did this last Monday, and so I'm just trying to drill down and understand exactly how this works, because this, I think, I can speak for all of us. Maybe I should just speak for myself when I say this is the single question that I am getting the most, is how does this work? And I think we have had a variety of different answers to that question. Let's hypothesize a school with 500 students. Thank you, Gerard. And so 60% of 500 students, and that's projected enrollment from at some point prior to the beginning of the school year. 60% would be 300 students. So we're going to have a cutoff of 300 students at, we'll call it school A. What happens if we have 100% of the first graders who want to come back, but only 20% of the fifth graders? Is that just an overall number and the principals are expected to manage classrooms based on the square footage and social distancing that we've given them? Or is the 60% going to be applied at the grade or the classroom level? Because the answer we got last week was that it would be applied at the classroom level.
Yes, so Gerard, let me first take a stab at that to try to clarify. Excuse me. So that was our thinking as well last week. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. That was our thinking. That would, however, create a number of other issues if we were to begin to modify the instructional model based on like a grade level, then that may impact like transportation. And so when we talk about modifying just a grade level, that's going to impact the entire school. And so what we've thought of is that we would work with principals to modify the instructional model for the entire school. So that may mean that the entire school's instructional model has to be modified, but it's only the first grade who has, most of their students returning. So it just depends. Hopefully there is a situation in a school where the principal will have teachers. So if you don't have as many teachers coming back on the second grade level, then hopefully we can rearrange the schedule so that those teachers can also take some of those first grade students where there are a large number of students returning. So it's going to take a lot of coordination within the school. There are a lot of variations that are possible, but the first thing that we're going to do is try to use the resources that are in the school to arrange the schedule so that those teachers can be reapplied to teach different grade levels. So did I explain your question, or did I clarify it or make you more confused?
I think so.
Okay.
I think what I heard you say is that we are going to support and assist principals in planning for their
Yes.
individual situations. I assume that would include specialty classrooms such
Yes.
as dual language immersion, where all the students have to be kept together because of the specific nature of the program.
Yes.
Yes, and so, and I'll just add, just so that it's very clear, taking that 300 number that you said, Board Member Briscoe Brown, that number, that's the overall number, and principals will assign staff as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are over in first grade, if
Mm-hmm.
we're lower in third grade, we'll have to reassign some of those third grade teachers to cover those first grade classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be some reassignments within the building. It's not the classroom levels that the decisions are totally made. It's the 60% for our projected enrollment. And so if we have to reassign within the building, we will reassign within the building. Hopefully we will not have to go outside of the building with any kind of reassignments or anything. But at this point, it's an overall number, and we will reassign and adjust as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. I think I had another question, but I can't remember what it was. So I will yield the floor at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Candace?
What do we mean when we say that based upon the October survey data, most schools, 95% of schools won't be impacted by the 60% capacity standard?
Yeah, so in October, we surveyed the parents. Parents completed the intent to return form. And so based on their declaration, that's where that data came from. So those parents in October told us whether they were going to remain virtual or whether they were going to opt for an in-person model. And so that's the data that we are referencing when we say the October survey data,
And
the
when we're
intent to return.
And when we're saying most schools won't be affected by the 60%, does that mean based on that data, it appears that at most schools, we would be under the 60% capacity
Yes.
by
Absolutely.
virtue of that survey data or by virtue of the example that was given earlier, which is that the enrollment numbers are based from March 2019 and so are way under or over anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to correct something or address something you said, Candace. It is 60% projected enrollment. I just want to make sure we're consistent. I think you said capacity. I just want to make sure.
Okay. What's the difference? This is part of my second part of this question.
Oh yeah, so capacity, so building capacity is different than enrollment. Okay. So
Sorry,
even though
fair enough.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So even though
That's part, but to your point, that's part of the confusion, Candace.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I guess
the words.
to put it another way, is it true that the intent of this 60% enrollment cap is to reduce how many people we have in the building, which is a term we use for capacity, right?
Well, it is. So the purpose of that is so that we can safely implement the mitigation strategies, the social distancing. So that is the purpose of that 60% capacity, because we have to be able to safely implement the COVID-19 mitigation strategies.
And the way we do that is by having less people.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Yes.
less capacity I think that's the confusion there, right? This has an impact on how many people we can put in a building, but
Yes.
I think that my initial question is, if a school was enrolled at, the survey data told us in October that if people have the same feelings they do today as they did then, and make the same decisions that they indicated that they would then, for 95% of the schools, we will not be at 60% of enrollment in January.
That's correct.
What that sentence means?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Michelle?
So to follow up on what Candace is saying on that 5% or the balance of schools where we do have over enrollment based on the actual capacity of the school, how are we balancing that? Do we believe that the over 60% will still be able to fit into the school buildings? And I know for for the highest numbers, they're split campuses. So I think the highest numbers we saw were at Morris, Brandon, Jackson, and Smith, and all three of those are split campuses. Between their split campuses, is there enough capacity to compensate for the over 60%, or are you 60% enrollment? Okay, 60% enrollment, or are we looking to do something different in those schools?
I think I want to caution against jumping ahead of principals in that. Of course, Anita, you can answer. Obviously, you're chief schools, but I just want to be careful with jumping into specific examples and then boxing principals in when I don't even think they're.
Well, to your point then, Jason, do principals have the flexibility to continue to keep their 4 days an asynchronous day if the formula doesn't fit? I think that's the question I've been getting the most, is if we are at 61% or 70%, where is there a hard line? Or are we going to allow the flexibility and autonomy of the community to provide a solution for their schoolhouse?
So yes, we are allowing for flexibility for each school to modify the schedule, modify the instructional model as needed. So there is room for that flexibility.
Great, thank you. I think that's That's the answer I was looking for. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Nancy?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
And forgive me if I missed this. What is the date that we're going to inform parents of what schools are doing what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
What is the date or the time frame that we are going to get back to parents and tell them what schools have the capacity and what schools may not have the capacity?
So we have not set an official date, but what we have said is that after we return from the break and we have the data that we need from the intent to return form, then we will begin to notify parents like the second week, the first or the second week after we return. But the intent to return form, that closes on December 21st. So we won't have all of the information that we need to make that determination prior to that.
And so I would imagine that it's safe to say at this point, we don't really know where we stand. And I think that we're not confusing, but just kind of fueling this a little bit more. And I think it's the intention of all principals to work as hard as they can to make it work for their school base. So I would just kind of say, let's hold off until we get it all back, because nobody does not want the kids to go back. And I think we have great principals that can come up with unique situations, especially, in those schools that may have 2 campuses or have another school nearby or something else. But I think we're, what I want parents to know is everybody is trying their hardest. And whether it's 60% enrollment and 58% capacity, they're going to figure out a way to get that 2% to fit, I think. So I caution that we're just kind of painting a darker picture than it is.
Nancy, I appreciate that comment, particularly because if you think about how much time we spent on this conversation, we're likely talking about 4 or 5 schools, if that, across the system.
Yeah, and you know what? We're going to figure it out.
Yeah. The other 65 school sites, we're not even close. Even if the declaration increased by 20-30% returning to school, we would still be well below that cap. So I agree with you. I think we need to
I think the biggest question is it really true that we're going to reopen schools, that we really want to do it? And the answer is yes, that's our intent. And the next step is, how are we going to do it? And we just need to have a happy holiday, and we're going to figure it out in 2 weeks in January.
Here. Leslie?
Just wanted to clarify one tiny last thing. If a parent says that they want their child back in person, and that is what they submit through their form, and they decide week 2 into it that they're just not comfortable with that, they can come back and do virtual school. They can participate virtually in the class. The alternative is not necessarily available though. So if they said they want their child to be virtual participating virtually, and then 3 weeks into it, wanted them to go back in person, is that change available?
So it takes a great deal more planning for someone to come from the virtual space to the in-person space. So we're asking that that declaration remains in place for the third 9 weeks. And then they will get an opportunity to then revise or change their declaration at that point.
Okay, and so if 80% of the parents at one particular school said they wanted them to go back in person, and then they heard how crowded it was going to be or something, they could change their mind and keep their child home.
Yes, they could.
Okay,
that's an option.
Okay,
I
think the issue is there's a psychological fear of locking into something that that negatively impacts you, and people understanding what those parameters are is important.
So Yes, but I want to echo what Dr. Herring said a couple weeks ago, which you should not, there's no switching either way. However, if someone's uncomfortable with the in-person setting, I can't imagine anyone in the middle of a pandemic is going to force them to go back to school face to face. But we're encouraging parents to not switch. If you feel like you will be uncomfortable with the in-person setting, if it's at 60% cap, whatever that looks like, then you should not select to go back in person, because principals need to plan, and they don't need to be faced with that. Yeah, they don't need to be faced with those circumstances. But to your point, Leslie, no one's going to force someone who feels uncomfortable going in person back in person. That would be, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think that is it. So I appreciate that, that slight detour, but I just wanted to make sure, because the memo that came out on Friday, folks were reading that, and I know that 60% question was out there. And then as far as the everything else, to Nancy's point, we will be coming back in January, and principals will let folks know, and also the district, like last time, we will release the results as well. So parents will have that data by school. Let's go into committee reports. Let's start with Candace and policy.
Okay, thank you. We met in November and we had a very board-centric meeting where we discussed 3 board-related policies, including the board statement of values, which we just passed on first read as part of our consent agenda. Is that my computer?
Are you okay? Everything okay over there?
I don't know. Was that? I guess that was my computer. That was really weird. Okay, I just learned how to do dual monitors. And so if I'm looking up, I wonder if, I don't know, I must have clicked on something, I'm sorry. And then we also talked about goals and objectives in our standing committees. I really honestly don't know what I clicked on to do that. It's like a sign to stop popping or something. I don't know what that was.
No one understands what you just went through. Like we're all just looking at you like, we don't see what you see, so sorry.
I don't see anything. Like I want to show you guys, I literally don't see, I don't know what that was.
Okay.
It was a Christmas holiday miracle, or not.
All right.
That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have audit, Leslie.
We did meet last month. We just had one particular audit involving a payroll audit for transportation workers, and that is up on the website. If you go to the board page and look under committee meetings, committees, you'll find the information there, along with, we always have the full presentation available if people would like to look at that. And we also nominated a new community audit advisor. So I want to say welcome to Shelby Nelson, who will be joining us as a professional in the space to help the committee fulfill their work. We will not be having a meeting in December, but Connie Brown has indicated that we will have one in January.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think that that Candace forgot to mention that their next meeting is on December 17th. And Leslie, thank you so much for your update. Board development, Cynthia.
Yes, we had planned to have a board development retreat this past Friday to continue our work on the student outcomes focused governance, and specifically to develop our goals and guardrails. However, we ended up postponing that retreat due to the superintendent's family emergency. We'll be rescheduling that as soon as possible. Since we didn't have the retreat, we will not be having a board development committee meeting this Thursday, during which we had planned to debrief from the retreat and discuss next steps. Since we didn't have the retreat, we don't need to debrief or discuss the next steps. So we'll have our next board development committee meeting in January and expect to have our board retreat before then.
Great. Budget, Michelle?
Thanks, Jason. We met this past month and Lisa did a wonderful presentation of going into detail with our student success funding formula, our priorities for this coming year, and pointing out where we're headed with respect to our budget. Also, I'd like to mention that at last Monday's board meeting, Mr. Hoskins walked us through where we are with SPLOST as well, because that's another, it may not be under my purview per se, but more money for the school district and something that important for us to keep an eye on with respect to our capital improvements and deferred maintenance. We will be meeting again this week as we continue to work through the budget, and we will be in the new year be looking for our budgets by department and how we'll be moving forward for the next school year. So we're chugging along, so to speak, in our timeline.
Thank you so much, Michelle. All right. I think we are good to go. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to Reverend Herring's family and to our superintendent, Dr. Herring, as they go through these challenging times. So want to, again, send out prayers on behalf of all of us to her and her family. I think that's it. Anyone have anything else? Michelle, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to thank my colleagues, thank all of y'all who joined us this past week for the Georgia School Board Association's, I guess I want to call it like a holiday conference, but the December conference. Really appreciate Ishay and Erica for coming to join me on my District 5 board member meeting. And I really appreciate everyone who attended. I know Cynthia was there and Aretta was there as well. Jason, I assume you went to the school chairs meeting while I was running the District 5 meeting. And also want to just update you in my role as board member for Georgia School Board Association. I have met with the superintendent of Beaufort City Schools, as well as the superintendent with Fulton County Schools, and really impressed with the work that they're doing in those communities to support children during the pandemic. So that's it for Georgia School Board.
Great. All right. Let me have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
You look like you didn't want me to do that after all.
Yeah, I just thought about something. This is the discussion part of your motion. No, it's properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Erica Mitchell. I did want to mention that we are going to push back the school board meeting to January 11th, the following Monday. And I don't know if that was finalized, so here I am announcing it. But but we were trying. It was going to be very difficult, given all that's going on, to come back from that holiday and report out to the community like we wanted to. So I wanted to make sure that there was some space and time for the administration and the board office to do what they needed to do to make sure our presentations and our discussion topics were prepared for the board meeting. So that change was in our was in our consent agenda. So folks wanting to look at our calendar can see that that change was done with today's meeting. So with that, all in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Have a good evening.
Happy holidays.